Hello, welcome to my first vlog about permaculture ethics and design. Now, when people think about permaculture, quite often the first things that come to mind are things like, I don't know, no-dig beds, compost loos, forest gardens, that sort of thing. Well, that is permaculture, and that's evidence of permaculture out there in the world. And I like to call those things the symptoms of permaculture. So in my diagram here, actually, there's something at the heart of permaculture, which are some core ethics that I want to talk to a bit about today. There are some design principles that sit around those, and they come from a really rigorous study of and an observation of how the natural ecosystems work. There are some principles by which they function, and it doesn't matter whether it's the ocean or a forest or the Arctic tundra, the same principles apply in nature. So if we know what they are, then we can apply them to our own human designs. So that's basically where those principles come from. Once we've grasped those, then there are some tools to help us to kind of put those things out into the world, into our own designs. And then we get to those projects and techniques, which are the visible manifestation of that, if you like. So in these little vlogs, what I want to do is start, first of all, with having a think about these ethics. That's what I'm going to talk about today. And then over the next few weeks, I'm going to take one of these design principles at a time, and we're going to go with David Holmgren's 12 design principles, and just kind of say a bit about them and have a think about how they can be applied outside of things like agriculture and food growing and gardening, because permaculture globally has already done a lot of work in those areas and has pretty much nailed it. And I'd like to see these things being taken out into the wider world. I'd like to see criminal justice systems, education systems, businesses, healthcare actually rooted in these ethics and design principles. So here they are. Now, the lovely David Holmgren and his design friends came up with some little icons to help us remember what they are. Okay, here they are. So these are the three core ethics that I'm going to talk about today. Okay, so first of all, this little icon, this represents care of the earth. This is earth care. And basically, this isn't rocket science. Are we looking after the earth in everything that we do, or are we causing harm? Are we being destructive? So this ethic that sits at the heart of any of our designs requires us to think about how we're not only caring for what's already here, but what are we doing to restore what has already been damaged? So how do we rebuild that natural capital? So that's the first ethic, that's earth care. So the second ethic is care of people, people care. And this is about caring for ourselves, caring for our kin, caring for our community. So yeah, that's, again, this isn't rocket science, but it should be at the core of what we do. And if it's at the core of what we do, then we don't end up with problems down the line when we realise that we haven't been looking after people very well. And from a business point of view, that's about thinking about who are all of the people in my supply chain, right from raw materials, right through to customers, and what happens to the waste of my products afterwards. If I'm really caring for people and caring for the earth, then I'm thinking about that whole process right the way through. Now the third ethic is fair shares. So this is about the slice of the pie. What do we do with our profits? What do we do with our surplus? How do we share that, and how do we make it as fairly distributed as possible? So again, from a business point of view, that actually this ethic might invite us to think about, well, what's the difference between how much the highest paid and the lowest paid person in my organisation? What's the ratio? What's the difference between that? It might ask us to think about something like, wow, where do we actually invest our pension funds? Where does that go? What's that supporting? Pension funds are usually really huge, big pots of money, and can be quite influential when we make conscious choices about where those things are invested. Okay, so very, very briefly, those are the three core ethics of permaculture: earth care, people care, and fair shares. And they're this like beating heart that's in the middle of it that we keep coming back to, and they can guide us with our direction and intention. So hopefully that's enlightened you a bit about the core ethics of permaculture. And next time we'll have a think about one of the first principles of permaculture design, which is to observe and interact. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.